Hi, I'm Steve Gompertz of QRx Partners, and welcome to this week's Quality Heretic. I want to talk this time about an often overlooked step in problem solving, and that is creating the problem statements. I think too often when we're working on CAPAs or NCs, MRBs, whatever problems we have to solve, we often this step goes by really quick because something happened. We know what happened. Everybody's in agreement, right? You get into a room with your team. You go, everybody understand what we're working on today? Sure, sure, sure. Everybody nods, and off we go. And we start down the path of solving a problem that we haven't stated yet because it seems like it's something obvious. But the reality is, if you don't get this piece right, everything else that happens from here is not going to go correctly or effectively from that point. And it deserves more attention than you give it. You probably have seen this quote online. This one about if I only had an hour to save the world, I'd spend the first 55 minutes defining the problem. First off, that is not an Einstein quote. I know that everywhere you see that, it will say that it was Einstein who quoted that, but there's no evidence that he did. And he died long before that statement started appearing in texts or anywhere. But you get the gist of it, right? The idea is that really the time spent up front in making sure we understand before we start to commit resources makes a lot of sense and is well deserving of that time, and will be, rewarded well in a much better solution to whatever the problem is agreed to finally be. So some of the problems I see, when I look at problem statements, like in things like CAPAs, a focus on the symptoms, just repeating back, this is what we observed, this is what we think happened, right? And that's the problem statement, right? And you go, is it really the problem? Just because that's what we saw, right? Is that really the problem, right? And it could be things like the operator inserted the wrong tool. All right, I think there's a lot more going on there. And you're missing it by just simply creating that kind of a statement. This happens a lot, stating the problem as a solution. The equipment needs to be replaced. Okay. The operator needs to be retrained. That's not a problem statement. You've already picked the solution to a problem that you have not stated yet. Right. So how do you know that's even the right solution if you didn't agree on what the problem was? And like I said, I see a lot of this. It just seems, oh, we've already made some assumptions, right? Whether conscious or not about what we need to do. And so therefore we state the problem that way. And therefore magically the solution fits. Right. That's not the way the process is supposed to work. Not stating the problem in measurable terms. At the end of the day, you need to be able to confirm that whatever solution you worked up actually solves the problem. Well, if I don't know how to measure the problem, then I can't come up with a way to test whether my solution was the right one and is really going to be effective, right? And you see this especially in CAPAs, corrective action, preventive action. You're required to demonstrate or evaluate the effects of your actions on either preventing recurrence for corrective actions or occurrence for preventive actions. And it's the same concept here. You need to have something that tells me how will I know I succeeded in this, right? In some sort of measurable term. We get a lot of vague, statements. The assembly process needs improvement. I get it that sounds like a problem, but you haven't said anything. What part of the assembly process? What do you mean by improvement? Where are we today? Okay, which kind of gets me to the fifth one, which is what is the desired state? What didn't happen that we needed to happen? Okay. Because if I don't know the delta between what I observed and what was supposed to happen, then there's a lot I don't understand about a good solution here, right? So these things happen quite a bit. On the opposite side, what a good problem statement should include would be things, details, what, when, who, where, how, right? Everything you can do to tell the story. I say that a lot to my students. Everything you're stating has to be said like a story, right? So make sure you don't leave anything out. Because if you were leaving these details out of a book you were reading, you'd hate the book, right? So when we're creating these records, we need to also be very clear. What is it that happened? Exactly. How much do we know? How much more do we maybe need to go find? I'll talk about that in a little bit. Again, part of it has to be, and what was supposed to happen? This is what happened. What was it that was supposed to happen? And again, be very clear and kind of match it up to those details, right? So that you get a before and after potential picture of what it will look like once you solve the problem. Stick to the facts, no opinions at this point, no biases, right? Again, no stating of the solutions ahead of time. Keep the assumptions out of this. What do we know, or what do we need to go find out, right? What do we still need to measure to make sure we fully understand the nature of the problem? And then how bad was it, right? This tells us criticality. How quickly do we need to act? What what should be in scope for the type of solutions, right? Do we need a quick solution, or do we need something systemic in nature, right? Something more involved. And that comes from that first bullet, understanding the what, when, who, where, and how, and all of that stuff will tell you. And the second piece, then, what was the desired outcome? That will help me understand just how bad was this, and therefore how much action do I need to take and how quickly. So, um, I always like this one as a good example. I use this with a lot with my students or when I'm giving webinars or workshops. And it sounds like a valid problem statement. Parts are failing inspection. Okay, that sounds great. What's wrong with that? Okay, again, it's an observation. It's not really telling me what happened. Because if I get that given to me as a problem statement, I instantly, and I always jokingly say this, I instantly have an instant solution for that. Stop doing the inspections. All right, the problem goes away, right? You stated that as the problem. The parts fail inspection. Well, if I don't do the inspection, they can't fail. Let's move on. And obviously that's not what we're trying to do here, but that's the nature of not getting the problem statement right, is it creates these simple groupthink responses that go nowhere, right? And do nothing for you. Instead, what we're looking for is details, right? Tell the story. Since June 1st, 20% of a particular part number in a particular work cell, and by the way, it doesn't matter which shift or which operator, that's important to know, exceed their OD spec, and they can't be reworked. They have to be scrapped. So now we understand the severity of this. We're losing money on these parts, 20%, right? That's a high percentage of failures. But now we understand the nature of it better. That's a problem statement. We can start to act on that. There may be more details beyond that. And sometimes you go, well, this is all we knew right up front. And I've talked about this in some of the other videos about this is the time when you now go test your hypotheses by gathering more data, right? By doing some more simulations or testing or whatever to fill in the blanks, because maybe you're not done with your 55 minutes of problem definition, right? Before the end of the world. So use that full amount of time, that full capability you have to get all of the information you need to come up with a really solid problem statement. So, I'd love to hear your stories. I always like to hear, it's always fun to hear, like what's your worst, situation you ever saw, the worst problem statement you ever saw, and what did it do in terms of driving the wrong behaviors? Or what do you guys use for tools, right? How do you get to the right information when you don't have everything available, maybe right up front? I've done some talking about the use of quality tools and having a good toolbox. And again, it'll be really interesting to find out how people are attacking this situation to come up with good problem statements so that they therefore can do good root cause analysis and good action planning from there. So let's get the discussion going in the comment section. Otherwise, I'll see you on the next Quality Heretic.